Welcome, Right Riders. Thank you so much for joining me on today's live stream. If you're catching us on the replay, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sorry we missed you. How to raise money for your book. Many times when we first start out learning how to publish a book, we don't have a lot of discretionary funds to hire illustrators, cover designers, and editors. So today, I'm going to reveal some of the things that I've done to raise money for my book and try to help you go from dream to published. But first, let's see who's in the chat. Let's see. All right. Looks like no questions right now. So the first thing I want to do, hold on one second. If you're in the chat, make sure you drop some emojis. Let me know you're here. I really appreciate it. Let's see who all's in the house. I see a couple people in here. Let's see. Okay. Well. All right, Streamlabs, you're going to be difficult on me. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, again, if you're here, just let me know in the comments. Oh, okay. I see one person in here. How's it going? All right, looks like our chat is now working. That's perfect. So again, today we're going to talk about some ways that you can do what some people call bootstrapping, which means it's just a big fancy word for raising funds for your book, either to publish your book or things that you can do after you've published. So what are some things that you can use these funds for? You know, I know that I've put on numerous occasions, I've said that you can do publishing of books for free or for very little money. And that's true. And I have published numerous books without spending a dime. That said, there are a few things that you may want to spend money on. And depending on what type of book you publish, you definitely want to pay attention to some of these elements. It looks like it's starting to get live over here in the chat. So before I jump in, let me see who's in the house. Let's see, the King's Queen is here. Good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Let's see, Gangala. I hope if I butchered your name, I apologize. I see you guys in the house. Glad to have you here. So what are some things that you could possibly use this money for? Well, I've got my little cheat sheet here because I don't want to miss anything. Editing your book, and I've said this on numerous videos, is crucial. I know some people are doing no content books. Don't think this isn't about you. I've got plenty of things that have to do with no content books. But right now, if you're doing, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, any kind of written book, you definitely want to get an editor. So that's one thing that you can use this money for. Another thing is cover design. Whether you're doing a written book or you're doing no content books, your cover is one of the most important things, if not the most important element for your book. Because if it doesn't catch someone's attention at the thumbnail size, you don't even have a chance at getting a sale. So before your description, before your price and everything else, if that cover doesn't catch their eye, you don't have a chance of getting a sale. So cover design is crucial. Another thing that illustrators, if you're doing children's picture books, illustrations, and you're not an illustrator yourself, then, illustrators, yes, there are some ways that you can get illustrators for very reasonably priced, but very few are going to do it for absolutely no money at all. So again, having this money set aside that you can use for illustrators. Now, If you're doing no content books, maybe you want to try to go into coloring books. And again, if you don't have the ability to draw very well, like I don't, stick figures are still questionable for me, then you can actually find illustrators that will illustrate coloring books. But again, they're not going to do it for they're not going to do it for free. I don't know if you can tell I'm getting a little sick here, so bear with me. I've got my lemon water over here to kind of get me through. ISBNs. Some people really want to buy their own ISBN. And if that's the case, if you're here in the States, ISBNs will run you $125 a piece if you buy them one by one. Now, Barker does have discounts if you buy in bulk, but still, it's not free. Now, I know in some countries, like in Canada, you can get your ISBNs for free, but for the majority of the countries, you do have to pay a fee for that. Now, KDP, Lulu, they don't require ISBNs, but if you want to try out something like Ingram Spark or Barnes & Noble Press, they do require an ISBN. So if that's something that you may want to do either now or in the future, then that's something you want to think about raising money for that as well. Promotions. Whether it's running ads after you've published it, maybe you want to do some kind of promotion for, getting email addresses, whatever. Some of these cost money. So again, having money set aside just for your book and the publication of it, whether it's during the producing of the book or afterward, having these funds is extremely helpful. And last, as far as the things that I think of that you can use this money for, is if you want to do a book signing, even if you're a traditionally published author, you have to buy your books in order for you to participate in a book signing. Your traditional publisher will not provide you with enough books that you are going to be able to sign. They may give you a handful, but if you need 20, 30, 40 or more, that's going to come out of your pocket. Yeah, you'll get a discount as far as how much it costs you to purchase those, but in the end, it's still going to cost you money out of your pocket. So now that we've covered some of the ways that we could use this money, the question is how do I raise the money to purchase these services and publish my book? Real quick, I want to check in the chat. Let's see, some other people have come in the house. Jillian, glad to see you here. Thank you so much. Says she loves the channel. Thank you. I really appreciate that. This is the reason why I do this, is to help out others. I've gotten so many positive comments on my videos from you guys, and that just shows me that what I'm doing, you guys are finding enjoyable and, more importantly, helpful. So I will keep doing it as long as it's helpful for you guys. So getting to how can I raise this money? There are a couple ways. One way is freelancing. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I actually started freelancing on sites. They have sites like Fiverr.com and Upwork. Yes, you can use these to hire people, but you can also use it to become a freelancer and earn some money yourself. Now, with Fiverr, I know a lot of people automatically think it's $5, and yes, they start at $5, but I've seen gigs that go as high as $250. So $5 is usually for a basic or a base product, or something that they provide. But there's always ways that you can if you want extra revisions, or if you want more complex stuff, then it'll cost you more. So $5 is the base, but you can change the price for different what they call packages. And so you can do that on Fiverr, or you can do Upwork. And I'm sure there's other sites, but these are the two main ones. Upwork, I actually am both a client, meaning I hire people off of it, but I'm also a freelancer. I don't do as much freelancing now, but when I first started out with book publishing, and a lot of people don't know this about me, but for the first year, I actually made more money freelancing than I made selling books. And it was kind of a running joke with my family that maybe I should just stop with the books and just start freelancing. And yeah, I mean, I made quite a bit of that money. I mean, easily 2 or 3 times what I made in my book sales for that first year. And that's what I used the money for is exactly what I listed before. You know, for cover designs, for getting good editors, and a lot of the other illustrators. And so, what can you do on Upwork? Well, Upwork and Fiverr, it doesn't even have to be book related. I mean, you can do data entry. So some people will post a gig or a job, depending on the site that you're on, and they'll want all this information entered into an Excel spreadsheet. Something that'll take you maybe 10, 15 minutes to do, and you'll make 20, 25 bucks doing it. So when you first start out, you're going to want to, and I can do a whole other video on this if you want, as far as like how to get jobs on these sites. But what I found is for your first job, you really want to put your price per hour or per project lower than what you really deserve. Your time is probably worth $50, $60, $100, $200, maybe more. But in order to get that first project in, you really need to undercut yourself. I mean, I did projects where it took me a couple hours to do, and I made $10 for it. But what you get is you get reviews from your clients, and you also get a lot of information about like how quick your turnaround is, what your overall rating is, as well as actual comments and commented reviews that clients will do, and whether they would use you again. That information is crucial in you getting future projects. My first project, it probably took me a good 2 or 3 months, and I would interview, if you will, or put in bids for probably 20 or 30 projects a week. And it took me a good 2 or 3 weeks before I got my first project. And like I said, I made like $10 on it for a couple hours of my time. But once I got that first project, I mean, even now I'm turning projects down left and right. So you have to start out small, so that way you can just get that first client. But that's like it with really any business that you are doing any kind of consulting work for or anything like that. Your first projects, you're gonna do cheaper. Sometimes you'll do them even for free, just so that way you can get that experience and those customer reviews. So just like with books, customer reviews are super important when it comes to getting that social proof that you're worth hiring, and then you can increase your rates from that point on. And again, if you want to see more videos on how I actually do the freelancing and how I respond to the invites for putting in bids for their jobs, I can do another video on that. That's not a problem. So like I said, you can do freelancing. Another thing that you can do is, and a lot of people are doing this now, and I personally never thought of it until I'd seen a couple authors do it, and that's crowdfunding. Places like GoFundMe, Kickstarter, where you start a campaign and send it out over social media, typically, where people will donate 10, 20, maybe even more dollars, and that money goes to help you publish your book or promote your book or whatever your goal is for that particular campaign. You typically will set some kind of goal, monetary goal. There are some things that make it more difficult, depending on what your social reach is. Some people don't like asking for help like that, which is one of the downfalls that I have. I'm not really big on asking people for money for pretty much anything. But if you've got a huge following, whether it's socially or following for you as an author, a lot of you can offer different levels. So with a $5 donation, you'll get a digital copy of this book. For a $25 donation, you'll get this maybe a prequel that you wrote but you haven't published. And when you do things like that, the key is to make sure that if someone is giving you money or doing something and you're giving them something that's exclusive, you need to make sure you keep it exclusive, meaning don't publish it later on, because that's when you're going to get people who were following you upset because I paid $25 for this, one of a kind exclusive prequel, and then 2 years later you publish it. So it takes that, it takes making that special completely out of it, and it can leave a bad taste in their mouth. So keep that in mind. But yes, you can do different packages depending on, the different levels that you want for raising money. Some could get to the point where, once the book is published, if you donate $50 or more, once the book is published, I will send you a copy of it, a physical copy of it. If you donate $100, I'll send you a signed copy, whatever. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. One thing you want to keep in mind is that most, if not all, of these crowdfunding sites, the way they make money is they take a portion of the proceeds that get sent to you. So make sure that whatever your budget is, whatever you want your end goal to be, that you take that into account. Okay, so another thing that you can do is, let's see, you can cut back on, like, maybe cut back on your lattes, cut back on eating out. Now, a lot of us don't do that, and if you don't, then obviously there's nothing to cut back on. But if you do go to Starbucks or wherever, and you get your soy lattes or macchiatos upside down with whip or whatever you may get, which, by the way, that's my drink. But cut back. If you do it multiple times a week, cut back just once. I'm not saying cut it out completely. So many people will tell you, cut it out completely. And what I'm saying is just cut back a little. Whatever you're doing, if it's not a necessity, cut back one time. And if you only do it once a week, then maybe do it once every 2 weeks. And then you take that extra money that you would have spent on that and you put it away. Remember that publishing is, if you want to be in this industry for a long time and you want to actually make a living out of this, it's a marathon, it's not a race. And so, yeah, it may take you a while to publish the book that you really want to publish. But the important thing is to make sure it's published right. And that means you may have to raise money for a while before it actually gets published. So, and that's completely fine. So it's just a matter of priorities. So if that latte is the one special thing that you have, the one treat that you give yourself every week, then maybe you don't want to give it up, But think of those kind of things that you can give up temporarily to fund something that can make you money for the future. Another thing you can do, and this is so old-fashioned, I know, but it works. I've done it myself, is take any spare change that you have and every day put it in a container. Now, a lot of people say put it inside a glass container or whatever. I actually put mine in a sealed container where you can't see it, because then I don't know how much is in there. Because when I have a glass one, then I see, it's almost half full. Then I want to see how much is in it, as opposed to just keep putting it in there until you get to the point where you can't put any more in there. Then you stop and you count it, and that's what all that money will go for, is for publishing your book, promotions, whatever you need it for. Some people may say, well, I don't use cash anymore. Everything's digital. I use cards for everything, and I know that's the case. I go to stores, and I actually get amazed when I see somebody paying in cash. But it's actually been proven that when you pay with cash, if you have cash on you, you have less tendency to spend it because you actually see it leaving your hands as opposed to just a piece of plastic. So keep that in mind. So maybe you want to, next time you go to the store, go with cash. Maybe you'll buy a little bit less, you'll have a little extra change, and then you can put that change away. So those are some ways that I've thought of ways that you can raise these funds. Now, obviously, some, well, much better chance of raising you more money than others. Crowdfunding, freelancing. Freelancing, you may not have time to do that kind of stuff. I work full time. I've got a wife, 4 kids, but I still find time to freelance. And that's a good thing about doing it on these freelancing sites, is that you can work at your own pace, your own hours. You basically just deal with your client and give them an ETA as to when you can get it done by. But the other good thing is, like I said, it doesn't have to be book related. So if you have an extra 10, 15, 20 minutes, here and there, maybe you can do some data entry. It may not necessarily be the most, exciting tasks in the world, but if it was, they probably wouldn't need help doing it. But also, there's people out there that are looking to publish books, and they just don't have the time to do it themselves, but they do have the discretionary funds. So if you have a skill when it comes to book publishing, or illustrations or anything like that, then don't think that it's not good enough to try to do some gigs on Fiverr or some jobs on Upwork. One of the things I used to freelance was formatting people's ebooks and paperbacks for KDP, and back at the time CreateSpace, for uploading. Yes, and I would tell them, I've got a YouTube channel, I show you exactly how to do it for free. And they're like, I appreciate that, I'll check out your channel, but I don't have the time to do it. This is how much I'll pay you. And so there's people that understand that there are free ways to do things, but they would rather pay because you can always make more money. You only have so much time in a day. And so it's, for them, the priority is, their time is more important to them than their money, and so they're willing to pay you to do these things. So keep that in mind. Don't think that your abilities aren't good enough. I guarantee you, no matter what skills you may or may not have, you have at least one skill that you can freelance on one of these sites. It really comes down to whether you have the time to do it. And again, depending on what it is, if it's something like formatting books, then it may take you a little bit more time. Whereas if it's data entry, it may only take you anywhere between 5 to 30 minutes, depending on what the particular task is. Also, I've had people who just literally post a gig saying they need help with an Excel spreadsheet. So if you know Excel, or Keynote or whatever, you'll never know. You'd be surprised at how many different gigs are out there. So if you have free time, I would say just go on to one of those sites or both of them and just peruse. Be careful. It's like a lot of sites. It's like Pinterest. You can get sucked in, but you'll be amazed at all the different gigs that are out there. And you've got just as good of a chance at getting a job doing one of these gigs as the next person. So these are things to keep in mind. I do have some ideas on what you can do while you're waiting. So it may take money to it takes time for this money to come in. Well, what do I do in the meantime? Well, in the meantime, there are some steps that you can do to help yourself out. But first, let's check back in on the chat. And while I'm checking, whether you're in the chat right now or you're watching this on the replay, let me know what genre the next book that you want to publish, whatever it is. Let me know what the genre is. Put it in the comments or in the chat right now. I'd be really interested in seeing the variety that we have here on the channel. Let's see. Let's open this up. See, what does Jillian say? Chat's giving me a little bit of trouble again, but we're going to work around it. Where are we? Here we go. I try to pay things cash as much as possible. Learn that from Dave Ramsey. Absolutely. That's, I don't remember who first told me that. It might have been Dave Ramsey. I might have seen it there, but how much does it cost for an editor? Editors are all different prices. It depends. I mean, honestly, it depends on what kind of editor you're going to get. There's basically 3 different types. You can do line editing. You can do, I forget the technical term, but basically it's like long form editing where it's more deep dive. And then you've got proofreading, and proofreading is actually going to be cheaper because by the time you get to the proofreading stage, you're really just focusing on typos and grammar and that kind of stuff. But it really depends. I mean, I've heard editors charging. It typically goes by hour, and I've known some that do it for as little as $20-25 an hour. Others may charge hundreds of dollars an hour. The key is to find a good editor, and just like with your illustrators and cover designers and everything else, you want to make sure you find someone who is not only a successful editor and experienced, but more importantly, experienced with your particular genre, because they know what kind of tropes to look for. Proofreading really doesn't matter as far as pretty much anybody can, proofreading should be extremely cheap. But when you're looking for content editor, that's the word I was looking for. If you're looking for a content editor, then you really want someone who is familiar with your genre, because they like I said, they know the tropes, they know what to look for. Just like with cover design and everything else, they know what should be in there, what shouldn't be in there. And so it really depends. If you know anybody in your particular genre, any authors in your particular genre, you may want to reach out to them and see who they use. Some people, just like with cover designers, really keep that information close to the vest. They don't want to share that. But you'll find, especially in self-publishing, you'll find a lot of authors that really just want to help each other out. And technically they're helping out their editor too, because they're giving them more work. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry I don't have like a clear-cut dollar amount, but I've known people that have spent, hundreds of dollars. I've known people that have spent thousands of dollars on editors. And so, and I'm going to cover in a second how you can handle the different pricing and stuff like that. Good question though. Kevin McGuire. Kevin, thank you so much for being here. Glad to have you here. Let's see. Okay, if you have a question, put it down in the chat. If I missed it, just put it in again. If you have one you're watching this on the replay and you have a question, throw that bad boy in the comments. If you've commented at all on any of my videos, you know that I like and comment back on every single comment I get fairly quickly, within reason. But yeah, it's very seldom, unless I'm sleeping, very seldom do I let it sit there for hours on end. So if you have a question, put it in there, whether it's live or on the replay. Okay, so now we're going to get back to while you're waiting for this money to come in, while you're waiting to get to whatever that final dollar amount is that you decided that you need to raise, what can you do? I just thought of something else. Another thing you can do for money, if you have a YouTube channel or you have an email list or any way of reaching any kind of platform to reaching out to others, you can consider affiliate marketing. I'm not really going to cover affiliate marketing in too much detail right now. Again, if you have any questions, you can, I can do a video on that later, as well as things like, like other platforms. Like if you want to sell merch, these are all ways to bring extra income into your business. And again, if you're interested, I can do videos on all of that. Just let me know in the comments, in the chat, carrier pigeon, however you want to let me know, and I'll put that on my list of things to cover. But again, while you're waiting for that money to come in, there are some things that you can do to bide your time, to make your time go wisely, and to increase your speed of publishing. One is, and this gets to the whole editor thing and the pricing and everything else. Well, what if I can't afford to pay thousands of dollars for an editor, especially now? I've got this money coming in. I'm doing freelancing. I'm doing affiliate marketing, whatever you may be doing, but you don't want to wait. You want to try to get that book published as soon as possible. One thing, and I've talked about this before, but one thing I've known quite a few authors to do most recently is they piecework out their editing. So they may, if they can only afford to have one chapter edited a week or one chapter a month, then they send that off to their editor, and that way they're not waiting until they have all of the money to get the entire thing done. It'll help speed things up as much as possible. So yeah, pieceworking out, whether it's an editor or maybe you're doing a children's picture book and you really need to find an illustrator, and you find an illustrator and they may not charge a lot. The illustrator that I used for Mimi's Adventure, he did really good deal for me, and he's also offered to do very reasonable pricing for any of my viewers. So if you're interested in finding out more on him, just let me know in the comments, or you can email me at kwheelerbooks@gmail.com, and I will give you his information. He's willing to charge just $30 per page, which is actually very reasonably priced, especially with the kind of work that he does. But and it's not affiliate. I don't get paid for any of that, but he just wants to help out. But anyway, you can do that same thing. You can piecework it out. So if your book is going to be 24 pages long, and you don't have the money for all of that now, then have him do, or have your illustrator do 1, 2, 3, however many pages you can afford for them to do it once. Then have them do that, because it's going to take them a while to get the illustrations done, or if you're dealing with an editor, to get the editing done. So it's not really going to hamper things by pieceworking it out. But what it will do is it will help you, so that when you finally do get all of the money, at that point you're just getting the last few pages done or the last few chapters done, as opposed to once you get the money, now you start getting your editor working, or you start getting your illustrator working. So again, it helps speed up the process as much as you can when you're on a limited budget. Beta readers. This is really good for when you're getting an editor. And I've talked about this before, but beta readers, you want to get a beta reader before you even send it to your editor. Beta readers, make sure that you find one you find a couple that know your genre. They know they've read numerous books in that genre, and then they can really help you tie in your content of your story. Whether it's certain tropes that you've added in that just don't fit with that genre, and I have no problem with books that have tropes that are not necessarily normal for a specific genre. It depends on how off it is. If it makes sense with the storyline, it's a great way to make your book stand out. But again, these beta readers will, a lot of the times they'll catch typos and stuff like that and grammatical errors. But the biggest thing is they help with your content editing. They help with okay, this part just doesn't make any sense. They'll typically, when they're done reading your book, and they may send it in parts. They may send you emails, after a couple chapters, however you want to set it up. Make sure when you send them the book, you tell them how you would like their information. Whether you want it in Word or you want it in an email, and make sure you tell them how frequently you want it. Let me know after every chapter. I personally always have them do it at the end of the story. And the reason why is I want them, just like with a regular reader, I want them engrossed in that story as much as possible. I don't want them to have to stop and write stuff down or type things up and send it. I don't want it to feel like a task. I want it to be something that they enjoy, and then they give me the feedback at the end. But yeah, chances are, they may have questions. Why did this happen? What happened to this person? Things that you didn't think of. And these will definitely help you with that content editing. And so that way, and yeah, they'll like I said, they'll catch some typos and maybe some grammatical errors and things like that. They may have suggestions for chapter titles. They may even have suggestions for the name of your book if you haven't come up with, dial down an exact name for your book. They're very helpful for that as well. And so now that you have this information, especially if you've gotten 3, 4, 5, or even more beta readers, then you can tweak your book. And again, just like with an editor, you don't have to do everything that they suggest, but at least you're getting other people's eyes on it and their opinions on what they see. And then you can decide from there what you want to ignore and what you want to follow up with. And then once you're done with that, then your book will be that much better before you send it to your editor. And what that will typically do is reduce the number of hours that your editor spends on your book, therefore saving you money, as well as reduce the amount of changes your editor may or may not have. Now, your beta reader may suggest you making a change, and you make it, and then your editor comes back and says that, to change it back, or they don't like that, or whatever. And again, just like with the beta readers, you don't have to make any changes you don't want to. In the end, it's still your book. So you do what is right for your book and for you as an author, but make sure you don't, I know your book is your baby, so you want to hold it tight, and you don't want it, it's perfect the way it is, and that's not the case. It's, none of us are really perfect. When it comes to reviews, even Stephen King has 1-star reviews on his books. So, so there's, and I've seen typos in Stephen King books, and so nothing's perfect. So consider what your beta readers suggest. Consider what your editors suggest. But again, by adding in that beta reader, one is you're saving money in the long run by having less time that your editor needs to spend on the book, but also beta readers are free. And so you can get them looking at your book while you're still raising the funds to pay for that editor. Also, beta readers are great for getting reviews after your book is actually published. So if you've sent it out to 5, maybe 3 of them will actually put reviews. And those early reviews really help with getting the social proof that you need for people to consider buying your book. Let's see what else. So we've got the beta readers. Okay, so now we're going to get to where I'm, I suggest bartering and stuff like that. And everybody has skills. Like I said with the freelancing, it may not be book related, but everybody has skills. And so it all comes down to finding someone who has the skills that you need and need the skills that you have. So here's an example. And again, I've talked about this before, but I can format books pretty quickly, and as well as provide a lot of advice when it comes to book descriptions and stuff like that, and your actual Amazon sales page. And I've had an editor that is willing to edit one of my books for that swap. And so absolutely thinking outside the box, which I talk about all the time here, and you can do that kind of bartering where you find somebody who has what you need, and and again, it may not be book related. Maybe they do illustrations, and and they're really trying to work on their website, and you have skills in web design. Maybe you can do their website for them, and they do your illustrations for you. Again, just don't try to think so linear. Think outside the box. When it comes to things like illustrators, when it comes to proofreading, especially, definitely, I wouldn't say with content editors, but with proofreading and with illustrators, look at your local colleges. There are a lot of great artists and people in English majors and things like that are just looking to work on their portfolio. So if just because they're and a lot of them are probably freelancing too, but you can definitely get their work done a heck of a lot cheaper than if you get an already established editor or an already established illustrator. So again, you can just call up your local universities and see what kind of programs they have, and see if you can just put a posting up on their. They usually have a posting wall at the actual physical school, and you can put it there, or maybe they have a digital posting. But yeah, consider that. Like I said, you can get illustrators a lot cheaper, and especially if they're in college, they're probably tight on funds, and to be able to say that their illustrations were in a published book could be enough to add to their portfolio that they're willing to do it very reasonably priced, or maybe even for free. So don't exclude that idea of, and even high school's kind of touching it, because you don't want to really hire any minors or anything like that, but or even even if they don't allow you to post things on their boards at the schools, you can talk to the professors, and the professors may have other suggestions on ways that you can reach out to certain illustrators, or they can just write down your information and let their classes know. So again, think outside the box, and remember that there's no harm in asking. So many times I'll ask about something, and about doing a barter, a trade, whatever you want to call it, and I'll get this look where like, why? I didn't even think of that. Yeah, sure, why not? And so the worst thing to say is no, and that's part of life. So I say, just if publishing this book is that important to you, then it's worth taking a chance of someone saying no. But there's going to be someone who will say yes, as long as you keep asking and you keep with it. So let's check out the chat. Let's see who else is in the house. I'm glad to see everybody here. I don't see any questions. Let me hit refresh real quick. See if we get any questions. So how's everybody doing on this fine Wednesday? Are you guys looking forward to quarter four? Are you getting ready for quarter four? Do you not know what I mean by quarter four? I've had a couple people ask me that. For those who may not know, fourth quarter is basically the end of the year, and it's when people are spending more money, whether it's going back to school shopping, or shopping for the holidays, and so they're a little more willing to spend money, and so that's usually when books that may not normally sell, you may get some sales on. So I personally, I know a lot of people will use certain keywords, like maybe back to school or Black Friday shopping, or certain holidays. I personally don't do that because I just don't like changing my keywords that many times. I've just got too much. I've got too much in my backlog, as well as too many things I'm working on to go in and just swap out keywords every few months. Now I will swap out keywords if I want to. If something's stops selling, or stops selling as much as it was before, if I start seeing a decline in sales, then I will take a look at my keywords for that particular book, and I may tweak my keywords then. Especially, and I know a lot of people are in this boat, if you had a lot of publications done when you were on CreateSpace, and then CreateSpace went over to KDP, I know a lot of people have not gone in and added in those extra keyword slots, and I was guilty of that as well. But I have gone in and filled in those extra slots. Not only do you get 2 extra slots with KDP compared to CreateSpace, but you also get a lot more characters per slot. With KDP, with CreateSpace, you had 5 slots, 25 characters each. Now you've got 7 slots with 50 characters each. So, there's a lot more room for keywords and keyword phrases, long tail keywords, to really help boost your sales. So if you haven't already, absolutely go in there and do that. If you do see a decline in your sales, now when I say decline in sales, I'm talking about specific books. If you just see an overall decline, it could just be it could be the particular niche you're in. It could be just a downturn. Usually the summer months are going to be less. There's going to be less sales overall than definitely than quarter 4. So if it's with your all of your listings, then I wouldn't worry so much. But if you do notice some books are selling less than they used to, then you may want to go in and recheck your keywords, because chances are when you did your keyword research, you did things like went into Amazon and used in incognito mode, and you used the drop down to get ideas. Well, people's search patterns change, and so you may, even though you may have a long tail keyword that was really, really hot, it may not be as hot anymore. There may be a different long tail keyword that you can replace that with, that will bring your sales back. So keep that in mind. But yeah, so if you still have open slots, make sure you fill those. Fill them with relevant keywords. That's the most important thing, because relevancy makes a huge difference when it comes to the algorithm on Amazon. If it's not relevant, people search for your word, it's going to keep popping up, and eventually it's going to be irrelevant. You're going to end up going from page 1 to page 20. So make sure that you do change your keywords if you see a need to. Let's see. Okay. Marlo Robertson's in the house. You are very welcome, very welcome. It's a good strategy to focus on low content just for Q4. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what you're asking. There's 2 ways that I could take this question, so I'm just going to answer it for both ways. One would be if you're asking to basically stop working on written books and just focus on low content for now to reap the benefits of Q4. That's absolutely a strategy that I know plenty of people do. I have aimed more of my processes right now, more of my work more towards the low and no content books, mainly the low content, compared to my written, because, and this may be your mentality, is I can knock out more low content books than I can knock out my written books. And I do have a series, both a young adult series and a middle grade series that I'm about ready to start, that I have on my to-do list, and I have outlined. I have put some of that aside until the new year so I could focus on low content books. So if that's what you're asking, absolutely. Whether it's a good strategy, it's a strategy. Whether it's good will all depend on, it's kind of subjective. It depends on what your niche is. You can do 100 low content books, but if you don't do the niche research to make sure that you're in relevant niches, and niches that are actually profitable, then you've basically just wasted your time. So, wherein then writing a book and publishing it would have been a better deal. It would have worked out better in the long run come fourth quarter. The other thing that you may have meant by that is, is it a good idea to make low content books specifically for fourth quarter? Meaning low content books for the holidays. Maybe whatever holiday. There's so many different ones. I'm not going to list them, but maybe a low content book specific to the holidays. Again, that is a definite strategy that I've known people to do. I personally don't follow that strategy because I don't like, and Kelly Publish says it so much better than I probably will, but I don't like seeing a lot of dips and valleys and hills and valleys in my sales. So I try to focus a lot on evergreen. By evergreen, I mean things that'll sell year round. So I do have a few low content books and I think one or two no content books that are specific to fourth quarter, specific to the holidays, but that's not my strategy. I created those last year, and I don't plan on creating any more fourth quarter specific low content or no content books, because like I said, I just don't like to see that fourth quarter you're going to see rise in sales anyway, but I don't like seeing a book of mine only selling, it may sell a lot of copies for 2 months and then it doesn't sell the rest of the year. I don't like that kind of I don't participate in that kind of business model. Like I said, I do have a few that are like that, but generally I try to keep my books and even my written books. I don't write. My children's books are not based on holidays. I could, but I try to keep them as evergreen as possible, just so that way I can get more consistent sales year round. I hope that answers your question. And if there was some third way that you meant that, let me know. But those are the only two ways I could think of. Okay, that was it. Okay, so that makes sense. No problem at all. Anybody else have any other questions? And like I said, if I know we talked last week about, in the future, I've gotten so many positive comments about me doing a live stream where I actually will do a live tutorial on maybe creating a journal or creating a guest book or something like that. So that's definitely on my to-do list. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but it'll be soon. And I don't know what software I'm going to do it in. One thing that I have been, it was either last week or the week before, I think it was last week, somebody had mentioned doing interiors in Canva, and that really piqued my interest, and I've been doing it. And yeah, I've found you can definitely do interiors in Canva. And of course, for those of you who may not know, Canva's free. There is a paid version, but yeah, you can do interiors in Canva. So maybe I will do a live tutorial on how to do journal interiors in Canva. If that's something that's interesting, let me know. I will definitely do it if I get enough interest. Either way, I'm going to do a live tutorial in the coming weeks, and because what I really want is I really want the feedback from everybody, and together we will put together an interior. And what I'll probably do is, if there's enough interest in that particular video when I do it, I may just, since everybody worked on it, I may just send that interior out to everybody who is on that live stream. So once we're done with it, everybody on that live stream will get a PDF of that particular interior. That's something that'll only be available on the live stream. But I will make sure that I let everybody know at least a week in advance when that will be, so we can plan that out accordingly, so we can make sure everybody who possibly is interested is here on that live stream. And see if we have any more questions. Okay, so I don't know why this is being so difficult for me. For some reason, it is cutting off part of my chat. There we go. Okay. Do I run ads for my low content books? That's another great question. I do. I do on some of my books. No, I mean, I don't have thousands like a lot of people do, but I do have a couple hundred low content, no content books. I don't run ads to nearly all of them. There's a handful that I run ads to, and there's different. It's funny because I do different strategies. Some people say, if you've got a book that's selling really well, run some ads to it so it'll sell more. I've seen people who say, if you don't have any ads or you haven't sold any, run some ads to it so it gets seen. And then I've seen a third group where people say, if you have been getting sales and your sales start to dip, then you throw ads in there just to try to bring it back up. And the truth is, I personally do all three. If I have a low content book that I think should be selling, and sometimes I'll do it like right when I launch it, but I don't, in this instance, I don't do it for a long period of time. If it's a book that has not sold at all, I will, if I think it's something that is in a hot niche, and maybe it's just a little bit more, I don't want to say saturated, but it's got a little bit more competition than what I would prefer, then yes, I may run some ads to it. I am extremely diligent on checking the results of those ads, and by diligent I mean I check it probably at least twice a day for those particular types of books, ones that have not sold at all, and I will leave it up I will probably put a very low budget, maybe between $1 and $5 a day, and I'll start with a 10 cents per click CPC, and I will, like I said, I will look diligently at those, and if I don't sell anything within a certain time frame, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, usually no longer 2 weeks. If I'm running ads to a book and it hasn't sold any in a week or two, then I cut that ad. It's just a waste of my time. I also will set I'll write down in my little notebook, I will set a monetary max that I'm willing to spend on that particular ad for that book, because it's not selling. Now, if it starts selling, that's completely different. Then it goes to the next level. But if it's not selling at all, then I kill it. If it's either reached my max that I'm willing to spend for the entire duration of the ad, or if it hasn't sold after 2 weeks and I'm running ads to it, then I'll kill that ad, and I'll just leave the book up there for it to just be and try to get the organic sales. I will have some books that if I know that it's still hot for that particular niche, but the book is kind of dipped in sales, I may throw an ad up there just to get it back where I want it to be. And again, I don't watch those as diligently because it's already proven to have sales, and so but the sales have dropped a little bit, and so I will run some ads to that. I will check it at least once a day, and I'll probably give it a higher budget per day because I already know it's bringing in sales. Also, when I do all of the fundraising that I talked about before, most, if not all of them, I have go to a specific account just for my books. It's different. I usually use PayPal for all of that, and not to be confused with my bank account that I use for all of the funds that come in from my book. So my book sales, my royalties go into one bank account, but for all the money I'm raising for my books, that goes into a specific PayPal account. But anyway, and so getting back to the ads, and then if I have a book that is selling, and I know if I don't like where it's placed, or I think it's selling quite a bit, but it can sell more, then I may run ads to that as well. Just like with the ones that have no sales, I check it very diligently, and if it doesn't increase my sales enough, then I'll just kill it, because it's already bringing in money. If I'm not, there's no sense in me spending an extra $20 if the ads are only bringing in an extra 5 or 10. So as long as I'm bringing in, and usually before I run the ad, I will set in my mind how much more I want to be bringing in from that ad than before I even start the ad. So that, I'm sure that answers your question. I don't know if it helped give you some ideas on things that you could do. Obviously, if you're new to ads, then I wouldn't jump in like I do and do all these different scenarios. But if you have a low content book and you want to run ads to it, any kind of ads, whether it's for low content, no content, or written book, the most important thing is to make sure you diligently check your results, whether you're running Amazon ads, Facebook ads, or any other kind of ads, because it's very easy for that money for that budget to be gone through. Also, treat it like gambling, in that you don't spend any money, any budget that you can't afford to lose, because it's not guaranteed. So, hope that answers your question. Let's see. Let's see. Santosh, hello. I am doing fine. Thank you so much for joining me. The question is, how are you guys doing? We've got some nice weather for a change. I'm in the Midwest, and it's just been raining like crazy. So it's nice to actually get some nice weather for a change. Marlo, amazing value today. Much obliged. You're very, very welcome. I'm glad you're finding it helpful. Stick around to the end, because I do have one more thing that I want to bring up, and it actually has to do with editing, and it's a way to really, really help save you some costs on editing besides the beta readers and things like that. So stick around for that. Does anybody have any more questions? If not, then I will definitely get to my very last thing, which is, and again, if you guys have ideas for future videos, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Drop in the comments, put it in the chat. If you want to email me, you can email me at kwheelerbooks@gmail.com. Also, if you're interested in, I know I've talked about like merch and affiliate marketing and all these other things, and about affiliate marketing, real quick. If you've been on this channel for any length of time, you know that I'm not a sellout. I'm not one that's just gonna, throw something out there that I don't think is gonna be beneficial for you. And that's something that's really important to me, because once my channel hit about 1,000 subscribers, I was getting inundated with offers for, here, try this out, you can be an affiliate. And I would say 98% of them I turned down. Why? Because either I haven't used them myself, or I don't think that's going to benefit you. And those are the two most important things. I will not send you anywhere or suggest anything that I have not personally used and that I don't personally believe in. That is one of the things that I made as it's just the person I am, I guess, is the long and short of it. So if you do see, an affiliate link or anything like that for any of my videos, know that it's because I truly, truly believe in it 100%. An example is the self-publishing, the self-publishing course. Now, I know I did a review on it. I've done some links and some videos where they've got, the basic where it's like $9.97 a month or something like that. There's all different things. That course, I'm telling you, and this is not, they're not hosting this or anything like that, but or sponsoring this video, but that course, Dale literally helped me change, quadruple my sales in my business. So that is something I believe 110% in, and I feel like I would be doing you a disservice by not sharing it with you. So again, I don't want you to think that's he's starting to sell things left and right. That's not the way I am. That's not the way I will ever be. And what brought that up is I was going to say, if you're interested in the things I'm doing off YouTube, if you're interested in how I'm doing some of my affiliate marketing, if you want to know what's new, what's on my to-do list, as far as like merch and things like that, then you can go to kwheelerbooks.com/news and sign up for my newsletter, and I will send that out. I send those out every Friday. But let's real quick. I was gonna tell you my last thing, but it looks like you've got some comments in here. Let's see, which doc size is the best for paperback and ebook? Okay, well, ebook, paper doesn't matter. I've seen so many people that format their ebook, 6x9 or whatever. Doesn't matter. It's going to go on an e-reader, and even the font size doesn't really matter too much, because the owner of the e-reader that's reading it, they set their own font preferences and everything like that. So you don't have to worry about that. Don't include, if you're doing ebooks, one of the biggest suggestions I can make is don't put page numbers in there, because it's just going to confuse people. Because the more, first of all, it's going to be in an ebook format, so there are no pages really, and the page is going to differ depending on the formatting settings that the reader is using. So page numbers on ebooks not necessary. As far as what paper type or what paper size, trim size, it doesn't matter. I typically will just do, and that's why I usually will do my ebook first. I just do it regular 8.5 by 11, just normal, Word format, and that's what I use for my ebook. Now for paperback, unfortunately, I really don't have. It all depends on what kind of book you're doing. On most of my no content, low content books are 6x9. But as far as, your best bet is to go into whatever your niche is, find the top 10 to 20 books that are in that niche, and go into them and look. And if you have, I think it's DS Quick View. I've got so many extensions, I can't tell which one does it, but I think it's DS Quick View, and it's free for Chrome, and I think it's available on Firefox as well, but it's free. And if you install that, you can actually hover over the books, and it will give you all of the book description information anyway. So you can do that, or you can just click on it and scroll down about halfway, go to the book description section, and it will tell you the trim size as well as the number of pages. And do that for the top 10, 20 books that you see in your niche. Figure out what the average page count is and what the average trim size is, and that tells you what your readers are expecting, what they're used to. And so that doesn't mean that you have to stick to it. You can obviously go outside the norm, think outside the box, and try different trim sizes. Especially if you do one and it sells, sure, try a different trim size. Maybe it'll sell more. You never know unless you try. But if you're just starting out in a new niche, your best bet is to stick with what they're used to, and like I said, find out what the average is, what they're used to as far as trim size, and that's the trim size you should go for. Now, the only The only time I would steer from that, especially if you're new to a genre or new to a niche, is read their comments if they're on their reviews. Read the negative reviews. If you hear them, if they're saying, readers are saying things like, I wish it was a little smaller, I wish I could put it in my pocketbook, I wish I could, I wish it was a little bigger, I wish the font size was bigger, whatever, then obviously you can adjust your book size, your trim size to that. But generally speaking, if you pick the top 10 or 20 in that particular niche and go into the product description and see what size they're using, and you find out what the average is, that is your best bet to give them what they're expecting, and you got a better chance of getting sales that way. So unfortunately, it's not a real clear-cut answer as far as a trim size, but it is a pretty clear-cut way in finding out the trim size. And again, also the page count as well. When you're doing no content, low content books, and even if you're doing written books, you really want to keep an eye on what your competition is doing as far as page count. That way you make sure that you're bringing at least equal value to your customer, if not better value. Ideally, you want to bring in better value. So if they're charging $6.99 for a 50-page Sudoku book, and you want to offer a 100-page Sudoku book, then obviously you can charge a little more. Now, I wouldn't charge twice as much, but if you charge a couple bucks more, then people are going to look at that and see, okay, it's a better deal, and they got a better chance of buying your book. So keep an eye out for what people are used to and are expecting when it comes to trim size as well as page count. The same thing goes for written books. Obviously, if you're writing a young adult novel, and in your niche they're typically between 300 and 400 pages long, then chances are you probably don't want to write a 700 or 800 page book, because it's just going to be too much for them to handle. What you can do instead is take that same book and turn it into two different books, a book 1 and a book 2, and just find a key area where it will split and make sense to end one book and start the next. And so again, find out, and same thing for children's picture books. Find out what is the norm for your particular niche, and that way, like I said, you can feel free to change it. Don't necessarily do everything that they're expecting, but especially if it's a new niche, you really want to start off giving them as much of what they're used to as possible, and then just let your story or your interior, whether it's written or not, your interior and your cover be what sells your book to begin with. And then once you start getting fans of your books, whether it's no content, low content, or written, then you can try to do some variations of those books, whether it's trim size variations, page length variations, things like that. Really good question. Okay, do we have any more questions? If you do, and I missed it, like I said, throw it back down there. Obviously, I'm going to be checking these messages, the comments later on, and I will respond accordingly. Now, if you want to save more money on an editor, what you should really do is you should look into Grammarly. Not too long ago, I did a review of that particular service, and if you don't know a lot about Grammarly, basically, they have a completely free version that you can use, and for most people, that free version is going to be enough. And they also have a paid, what they call premium package. The free, if you're doing, and a lot of people are going to think, well, I just do no content, low content books, I don't need Grammarly. The truth is Grammarly helps out with so much more than just the books themselves. When you're, first of all, with your interiors, obviously, if you want to make sure that your interiors don't have any typos in them. So if you are doing low content and there's very little words in there, you definitely want to make sure the words in there are spelled correctly. But you also, it helps with email writing. It helps with if you're doing posts on social media, if you're doing newsletters or anything like that. It will help not only with spelling and grammar, but it will help with synonyms and help you find alternate ways to say certain things. And those are really helpful when it comes to keywords. A lot of people don't think of using Grammarly for keywords. I do. I use Grammarly for keywords all the time because, I may find, this word is searched for a lot, but it's also used a lot, because, it's a huge competition for that particular keyword. But and I may not think of a synonym to it, because that's the word I'm looking for is the word I use. But there are synonyms that you may not think of that people still search for. And the search volume may be a little bit lower, but more importantly, the competition might be extremely lower. So I use Grammarly for that as well. And again, the free version can help you just as much as the paid. Now, obviously, the paid version, it's got the plagiarism detector, which has actually saved me quite a bit. I do hire some ghostwriters, but even on my own writings that I have done, I have found that it'll actually, I may use the same sentence or two sentences or whatever in my books unintentionally, just because it's the way I talk, and I don't want to seem repetitive. So the plagiarism detector has actually detected that I'm plagiarizing one of my own books, and that tells me that I need to change up my wording a little bit more. So it helps me become a better writer. And so that's with there's other elements with the premium, but like I said, what I suggest is check out that video where you get my review, and it's completely honest. And if I would absolutely suggest start out with a completely free plan with Grammarly, and like I said, it helps with all different things, including including helping me find new keywords. So until next time, I don't see any more questions. So until next time, I will catch you in that Grammarly video. I'll see you next time, and remember to write right.